If you go through and you do a search on finances, you're going to find a lot of segments that we've done here, and some have involved millennials, Generation Y. There's a new study out there conducted by PricewaterhouseCoopers LLP and the fine, smart people at George Washington University confirming that millennials don't have a high level of financial literacy. You could say this about every generation as they come into their own, that there's a time in your life when you break away, you launch, and you got to handle your own finances. Some people do better than others. Some weather it well. Others, it's a bumpy ride. Well, that's happened since time immemorial. But this is talking about across the board that millennials as a group seem to fare worse than their predecessors when it comes to being young and financial illiteracy. Well, what does that mean to be financially illiterate? Does this mean to have no money in the bank? Maybe not. I think there's more to it than that. CPA and money therapist Holly Signorelli joining us here again on the program. Always appreciate having Holly on. Good morning.
Hi, Dave. How are you?
I'm doing well. So, millennials know all about smartphones, tech, devices, multitasking, but money, money, like Thurston Howell would say on the Gilligan Show. It's important. It's going to be important in their life. Do they know enough to just get by or to eventually thrive or not? And whose fault is that?
Well, I don't think they got a lot of education with true finances, like how to manage your money, not from an investment standpoint, but just literally, okay, how do you save? How do you spend? How do you set money aside for something that you want or for an emergency? And a lot of that is because Generation X wasn't very good at that either. 55% of them don't have any savings, so that's not a good thing. And children do feed off of what their parents say about money, even if they misunderstand some of the things their parents say. We have to, as parents, be mindful of our words when it relates to money, because it can create fear or lack for kids. And I think a lot of millennials have been grown up in an atmosphere in which they feel like there's not enough money available.
Holly, is there, I'm going to go out on a limb here like I always do. Oh, well, what a shock. Is there something to do here with never having to handle the stuff, with never having to put your name on a check? My daughter has a checking account. Does she really write checks? No. There is this debit card, and she has an account tied to it. I used to have to handle cash. I'd look at it, and it mattered when it's in your hand, it's yours. Do I want it to go away? Do I want to hand it to this person over here? It seems to have some extra value. When I'm holding a check and I'm signing it, putting my name to it, I'm filling in the numbers. Now I'm thinking about it again. Is this a good purchase? It's not a good purchase. I can still write void, and I can tear it up. This stuff is happening electronically. Am I off base, or is there something to do with that as well, that it just seems like a little less real when it's all happening electronically?
It may, but honestly, if people go online, and especially nowadays, like you said, because everything's online and it's so easy, you can literally see how you're using a debit card, for example, and you can see how much money you're spending. But I think a lot of people nowadays, they just go on there to see what's in their bank account. So people just don't really write checks anymore. They're just looking to see what's left. They don't actually take a look at it. You don't have to be a CPA or an accountant to do this. You're just looking at, where did I spend my money this last week? Maybe I bought a bunch of stupid stuff that I don't need. It's adding up to big dollar amounts. Yeah,
I remember my dad showing me how to reconcile a checking account with outstanding checks, and it was an eye-opener. I'm like, so wait a minute, I have to keep track of those ones that have. He's like, yeah, otherwise you're going to be bouncing like a basketball in the NBA. So, this is all good advice, but is that advice now coming from kind of haphazard places? What about us as parents doing our due diligence with kids?
I think it is important for us. Obviously, I do this for a living. So with my son, when he was younger, if he had his allowances, or he would trade things in like games at GameStop and stuff. And then he would even use little baggies. I know that sounds funny, but he was pretty young, to separate money, but
sure.
Of course there's other things I didn't do. But what I'm saying is I don't think the average parent has been doing that. And I think it is really important, again, how parents talk about money, because if they're fighting about money or they're worried about money, then people, I just see a lot of millennials. I talk to a lot of millennials, and they seem to really have their head in the sand. Like they just don't want to deal with it because it's too overwhelming. And the student loan debt is really the catalyst of the entire problem, because of the universities. The inflation rate over the last 2 decades has increased 5 times greater than any other inflation. So parents can no longer afford to pay for school. So kids are starting off with student loan debts, and they're making less money because there are more of them and less jobs because they're being outsourced or going to a technology.
Do you feel like student loan debt? Do you feel like that student loan debt nationally is our next bubble?
Absolutely. It's very bad, and it's all about greed. The colleges don't have to be this expensive. You know, it doesn't make sense for one thing to be 5 times greater in inflation than anything else on the planet. So it's really, that's where I think the real problem started. And then you end up with the credit card debt. And again, if you're making less money because of the economy, and again, because a lot of jobs are going to technology versus humans, then it's a bad combination. And that's why they're just like, oh my gosh, I don't know what to do. They just throw their hands up in the air. They're not sure how to fix their own problem.
Yeah, so what do you suggest to those who are smart enough to talk to you or to others who are like you and say, so what do I do? What do you tell them?
Well, one of the websites that I really like, because I was looking through it quite a bit, is jumpstart.com, because it's kind of a community where people are coming together to combine all of their information about financial literacy. And also, they really need to understand to talk to their parents if their parents aren't telling them that they need to take these classes. And a lot of them are doing 1099 nowadays because a lot of businesses like Uber are apps. And so a lot of these kids are working for apps like that, and they're getting paid 1099, and they're not aware of the taxes. And that, again, is going to be just one more thing to pile on top of what they already have. So they do need to be able to talk to a CPA, really.
Yeah, it makes sense. I'll throw one other thing out there, too, Holly, just as an idea. We had with our, and I'm not naming names because I'm not running ads, but our credit union did offer classes for teens to get together. It was like a Saturday thing. You're in there. There's no judgment. You go to some classes, and you don't want to hear from your parents. Okay, we'll do it in a fun way, and we'll show you the way all these different financial items work. And my kids actually said they enjoyed it, and they learned, and they were doing it, and then you end up with getting, at some point, sure, you get an account, but you have to be responsible. You're given all the tools to be responsible through the door, not just sign up, here's your free gift, now leave. They go through all the instruction with it, and there are a lot of institutions apparently do this now. Maybe this is another good way to go, too, if it's offered wherever you bank.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I'd like to put something like that together myself, where it's fun and lighthearted and not too much of a headache, where maybe you do it weekly for only 30 minutes for 7 weeks or something like that. Because it's so overwhelming, you don't want to overwhelm them when you're trying to help them get out of that feeling.
Absolutely. So, and you recommend jumpstart.com as a place to go. Holly, where else do we find you online as always?
At themoneytherapist.com, and I have all kinds of freebies on there.
So that's where you go, themoneytherapist.com. Is Holly Signorelli, CPA. Always appreciate talking to you. Voice of common sense on this, and a bit of a warning as well, especially with those student loans. Thanks, Holly, for being here.
You bet. Have a great day.
All right, you too. Appreciate it. More ahead, morning.